Greetings and welcome to Rice Crypto. I'm Rice, and on today's show, I'm going to be sharing the panel discussion that I moderated at the Litecoin Summit 2024. That took place on July 24th and 25th in Nashville, Tennessee. That panel discussion is all about self-custody, and I'm joined by Puey from Edge Wallet, Bobby Lee from Ballet, and Tom Deletto from Arculus. And in case you missed the Litecoin Summit 2024, I will include links in the video description for the Litecoin Foundation's YouTube channel where you can watch both days.
It doesn't get old. It's like each time you can notice something a little different and wonder why we keep using it. All right, so if you're outside and you're looking forward to this next one, you're going to miss it if you don't get inside. We're going to move on to, is self-custody important? We don't have everybody here, but I'm going to let the moderator, Chris Rice, introduce the panel. We do have everybody here. I don't have everybody's bio here, so I'm going to let Chris Rice introduce. Rice is a journalist, researcher, content creator, and host of Rice Crypto, Rice TVX. He has been actively promoting cryptocurrency since mid-2017. His channel features long-form interviews, news, and reviews, and opinions that come from financial sovereignty and privacy perspective. Learn more at ricetvx.com. So please welcome Chris Rice and his panel that he will introduce to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. My name is Chris Rice, and he did the intro for me. So I am a content creator, journalist, researcher. I have covered self-custody as something that I feel is a very important topic in the cryptocurrency space, probably one of the most important, especially with the regulatory climate that's coming. And I've had the pleasure of interviewing and talking to a couple of people that's on this panel. So I will bring up the first guest is Mr. Puey, and he is with Edge Wallet. And then, thank you for the applause. Then we have Mr. Bobby Lee representing Ballet, and Mr. Tom Deletto representing the Arculus. And what I really like about this is we've got three different types of wallets that are offering self-custody. So I guess what I'd like to do is start off for people who might be unfamiliar. We'll go down the line. Paul, would you introduce yourself and talk about what Edge Wallet is?
Thanks, Rice. So Edge, well, first of all, myself. My name is Paul Puey, CEO and co-founder of Edge. And our company is really trying to drive self-custody to the masses. Our goal is to make self-custody look like Web 2 custodial services. Think the kind of apps that a Coinbase or Kraken would deploy into an app store. The goal is to look and feel just like those, but give people a very high level of privacy, autonomy, and control, while still offering the functionality that people look for in a custodial exchange, but now getting that with what we call a self-custody exchange, integrating with many different decentralized exchanges and fiat on and off ramps and CeFi exchanges in order to deliver that functionality.
I do appreciate Edge Wallet as being a great mobile wallet, so thank you for being on the panel. I've had the pleasure of interviewing Mr. Bobby Lee from Ballet. Would you like to say a few words about yourself?
Sure.
Ballet?
My name is Bobby Lee. People at this conference know me as the brother of Charlie. I started this, so Ballet is my second startup. From my first startup 11 years ago, I did the dark side thing, which is running an exchange in China, of all places. So finally I got enough of that and came to the light side, which is very important. I think self-custody is so important. So I dedicated the second half of my crypto career to making self-custody easy and affordable to regular people. And that's why I created Ballet. We make these non-electronic cards that allow you to store hundreds and thousands of cryptos and NFTs. And it's very easy. There's no setup. So I can tell you more about that. But the most important part is we invented and created this product to really make self-custody easy for regular people so that you don't have to leave your coins on an exchange and you don't have to worry about getting hacked and you don't have to worry about not having your coins when you need to and having your private keys in your hands. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tom DeLito from Arculus. You mind introducing yourself and talking about Arculus?
Sure, thank you very much. My name is Tom DeLito. I'm the head of product at Arculus. So Arculus is actually part of a larger company called Compo Secure that makes a very, very overwhelming percentage of the world's metal payment cards and has for about 20 years. We're publicly listed on NASDAQ here in the US. So if you have a metal credit card in your wallet, we probably made it in one of our factories in New Jersey. If you have a metal Amex or Robinhood, Chase, you name it, we probably made those cards. About 3 years ago, launched Arculus with the realization that the chips on those cards were powerful enough to do all the cryptographic signatures necessary for a full HD wallet. So we developed an HD wallet on a metal payment card form factor that all requires three-factor authentication in order to use your on-chain assets. You need your biometrics to get into the Arculus app. You need your PIN that's stored on the actual physical card, and you tap your card to the back of your phone to send the unsigned transaction to the card to get signed on here. So your private keys live on the secure element on this card, and without all three factors, your crypto is never moving. So again, the idea, much like the other wallets here, is to broaden the tent, to bring more people to true self-custody, and for us, it's also very much about sort of driving it towards real-world use cases around payments and making all sorts of cryptos, things like Litecoin, actually usable in real-world payment scenarios.
All right, so this is about self-custody, because like holding your crypto, not your keys, not your crypto. I like the term that you used on X, saying no keyers. Is that the term you used? Non-keyers?
For the people that still have their crypto with exchanges, I guess we call them no-keyers.
No-keyers.
They don't own their keys.
This is something that I really wanted to talk about in this panel because it's regulation. Because we're seeing a lot of, obviously there's a lot of it's not very clear as far as the regulation, and I think we're getting ready to start seeing things happen. I don't know, there's a couple months ago, FBI had posted something on their X account encouraging people to use custodial wallets that you don't have your private keys to, trying to make it as if it's a bad thing to have your control of your crypto. What are your thoughts on that aspect of regulatory compliance, trying to end self-custody and make you use custodial services?
So I read through that FBI article pretty carefully, and if you wordsmith it and analyze it, you'll notice that they were really careful about their word choice. They said, you're at risk if you use products and services that aren't licensed. And for the average user that reads that article, they'll think, okay, well, what's not licensed? What is licensed? What's not licensed? Knowing that a vast majority of crypto isn't licensed because it doesn't need to be licensed. And so you're right. They're effectively the closest things to the licensed services are the licensed exchanges. But what they're referencing in the fear tactic is that many unlicensed services, which are custodial though, are the ones where people have lost the money. But they don't make that distinguishing factor, right? The licensed ones, sure, they almost certainly have to be the custodial services. They did mention people are losing and have lost money in crypto in these unlicensed services, which primarily are the exchanges that aren't licensed or are outside of the jurisdiction of the United States, since that is an FBI warning that was given out. But they steer clear from saying that you should be using custodial versus non-custodial. They blanket the term with license just to create fear of the entire crypto ecosystem, because there are very few options. But you're right, they are driving people to the custodial services, which is one that they can definitely surveil, they can control, they can freeze funds if they needed to, which makes it at that point really just another part of the banking system.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think it's terrible. I think that article, that FBI perspective, I think it's fear tactic. It's like you said, it's FUD, fear, uncertainty, doubt. I think it's fake news, very terrible tactics. And the word I want to emphasize on is about control. So what cryptocurrency gave us, a little over a decade ago, 15 years ago, is the ability for us normal people, citizens, average Americans, or any citizen anywhere in the world, to have true control of your financial assets, right? It's about control, because prior to cryptocurrency, all of our financial assets, aside from a few $100s of cash we have in our pockets, are controlled by the governments, which can be seized, which can be taken away, which can be frozen, which can be limited on a withdrawal basis, cash withdrawal, which can be questioned if you want to take your money out of your own bank account, right? It's all about control. So with crypto, it's unfortunate that still a lot of crypto assets are still in custodial hands where the owners don't have real control over them, including ETFs, by the way, right? So ETFs are great for the market overall, a lot of new people coming in, but the reality, just like with an exchange, you don't have control of that crypto asset that you purchased through your brokerage account. You don't have control, direct control over those coins on Coinbase. And with self-custody, even though we're technically competitors, but we're on the same side. We are fighting for you to allow you to have easy control of your crypto. And what the FBI did was to muddy the waters and talk about licensed, unlicensed. I don't have to get a license to sell a good product that allows you to control your own crypto. I mean, the U.S. is not a communist, it's not an authoritarian country. We don't need a license to sell good stuff. Right, and they make it as if like licensed services products are better than unlicensed ones. Well, in some cases, in some ways they are, but in the case of crypto, any sort of licensed custodial service, by definition, is you relinquishing your control of your coins to them, in which case the FBI or other government agencies can seize control, take your assets, and even prevent you from withdrawing it. It's just a mess of stuff, yeah. Don't get me started.
No, you have anything you want to share with that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I completely agree. A lot of this has to do with the fact that it's really easy to muddy the waters because the regulations are so unclear, right? So it's really easy to put out sort of a vague press release and go, be careful, license, boo, right? Be careful of that. And generally what they're talking about in that case was things like money transmitter licenses, which is a level of obscurity. Like we're talking about laws that were written in like the 1940s trying to legislate around things that are happening now, right? It just doesn't fit. So you have these weird laws that we're trying to put square pegs into round holes. And that's been some of the things with the Lightning services, right? Lightning services have been pushed as companies that are supposed to have money transmitter licenses, which is an incredibly expensive thing because it's not like you go get one license. You have to go to 50 states and get 50 money transmitter licenses, which is an incredible regulatory burden. Right, so there is a huge amount of regulatory uncertainty, and that makes lawyers at companies like mine super nervous. Right, they want to make sure that we're not doing anything that's going to get us in trouble with the lawyers, but at the same time, logically and pragmatically, right, we are all providing technology. Right, we are not money transmitters, we are not custodians, we don't hold your funds. That is precisely what we don't want to do. We want to give you the tools to hold your keys, to control your own stuff for your own self-sovereignty. And from that point of view, that's why we're not regulated from the point of view of money transmitters and custodians and things like that, because that's not what we do.
Okay, so to keep with the regulatory thing, with us seeing different politicians talk about the fact that we need to kind of get rid of self-custody and things to that effect, I'm curious individually, is there any sort of regulatory pressure, even though there's nothing been clarified, for you guys as companies with wallets that are self-custody to add KYC, AML? Is there any pressure for that to kind of happen at this point? There
was a proposal in Europe. They were going to require KYC on non-custodial wallets. It was part of the proposal around MiCA. And that was rejected. So self-custody is still legal in Europe. Yay, Europe, good job. But they were going around that. And the other place where, from a regulatory perspective, I think self-custody is at risk is with the CBDCs, right? I think probably 99.999% of people in this room are boo, CBDCs, we hate that. And with good reason. One of the things that I see when I go to regulatory events is that very often the regulators are much more on the side of custodial CBDCs are the thing that makes sense because from their perspective, it's what makes sense. Generally speaking, regulators that are pushing down that CBDC route aren't thinking about self-custody. And that is just sort of another reason why CBDCs are sort of a terrible idea.
They don't even understand the concept of self-custody.
Yeah.
I think regulators don't. They think assets being held by a third-party financial institution is the norm, and they think that's the only way. Yeah. It's really sad, right? In fact, that's how we thought before Bitcoin, right? In the 1980s and 90s, that's how we thought. And now we're awake.
So the fear that self-custody might be getting clamped down on as far as regulation hasn't been due to precise regulation coming down or getting proposed. By and large, it's been by the enforcement actions that have gone down. And we saw a few wallet companies get taken down and some exit, at least the United States. And so what I like to do is say,
which wallets got taken down?
So on the mostly on the privacy side, and so it was Samurai, obviously, that was taken down, as well. Another Lightning wallet exited the U.S. Right, so soon after Samurai was taken down, and the thing I like to say about self-custody is it's not what I call a 100% line in the, or whether or not you're a money transmitter is not a line in the sand. It's a whole gray area, and what does a company or a protocol do to stay as clear from the term money transmission, or in the case of Samurai, money laundering? Like, what are you doing to facilitate those services or not? And I like to say it's not that you are or you aren't. It's how good of a lawyer does the government need to make that case? Do they need an intern? Can an intern make the case that you are doing money laundering? Or do they need their top-notch best of the best to make a very well-founded case against you? And so clearly, as a developer and a builder in the space, you don't want to be building such that intern lawyer can make the case against you. You want to be building where their absolute best lawyers need to. But I would say, in all honesty, there's nothing 100% clear from being a money transmitter or a possible facilitator of money laundering. If you really wanted to go as full draconian as the U.S. could become, and that's the big fear. If they go full draconian, they could make that argument, but it'd be much, 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 much harder. And so the take is steer clear from that. Definitely self-custody is what has steered clear from that for a long time, which is why if you look back to when you first got involved, Bobby, I knew about you in 2013, and I think you were in business since like 2012 or so. The biggest companies or the biggest targets were fully custodial services, and you felt that, obviously. But as they start targeting and regulating the fully custodial, now they start chipping away at the arguably, helping transmit money, i.e. Lightning, or arguably helping money launder, i.e. Tumbling services and mixers. So that's kind of where I feel like the regulatory landscape is they're going for the low-hanging fruit first, and any products and services and people that are contributing to allowing their intern to make the case.
But I'm hopeful, given for the U.S., maybe Europe too, that as a free country where we value personal liberty and freedom, I'm hopeful that self-custody will remain allowed. It hasn't been tested, in terms of whether the Constitution allows for it, but I am pretty hopeful that it will be fine.
And so part of the reason I asked that question is because I've noticed that there's been some wallets that have discontinued their services, not just moved out of the United States. Monarch being one with my former sponsor, Robert Beatles, and then CoinFlip introduced Olive, and they did a big, huge marketing thing with that, and they just laid that to rest. And I was curious if there was something happening behind the scenes that is causing some of these wallets to close up shop. And that's the reason I wanted to ask if there was actually any pressure to do the KYC AML.
We don't have the FBI or the government agents knocking down our door about that. But what we do face is, for example, we're trying to sell these physical loaded products, physical Litecoins you can find in our booth. This is no different than the Cassatius coins from a decade ago. And we had to register with FinCEN as a money transmitter, money service business. And state by state, we would have to, certain states like New York, the more onerous ones, we would have to get a money transmitter license because they classify this as money transmission when I sell a loaded metal coin to ship it by mail to you. It's a little bit unfortunate. But we don't have the resources to fight them and take it to the Supreme Court.
If it wasn't loaded, would you be required to? If it was
unloaded, we could ship it. Like the cards, we could just send it, and you could load it yourself. Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, I have a history with NYDFS. It's a lot. Yeah, no, I mean, look, for me, self-custody, I go back to the foundation, right? The first words of the Bitcoin white paper talk about, a purely peer-to-peer version of electronic cash for payments that allow, payments from one party to another without going through a financial institution. Like, that's the first line. That is the key to, like, if we lose that, you lose the basic foundation of everything that's been built from that point forward, right? So I think it's very, very important that we don't ever lose the option for self-custody. I'm not someone who says, like, you absolutely have to be, everyone has to be 100% self-custodial all the time. People deserve the choice. If you want to use a trusted custodian, use a trusted custodian. If you want to split your holdings between some custodial, non-custodial, whatever you want to do, a bearer wallet, an HD wallet, like whatever combination of things you want, you should have the option to do that, right? It shouldn't be dictated that you have to do one thing or the other.
All right, so it looks like we're over our time limit. So if I don't know if you guys have like any quick final thoughts, we can go down the line and wrap things up.
I'll do a quick contradicting last closing thought to what Tom said. While I do believe you should have the option, I don't think people should use any custodial services, period. Because the danger in saying that, yeah, use this and use that is if we don't have a majority of people using self-custody, it'll be far easier for governments to squash that option because it won't be hurting anyone.
Good point.
So,
Mr. Lee, any final thoughts?
Yeah. So the message is not just for people in this room. Obviously, I assume vast majority of you hold your coin self-custody. But it's really for you to bring that message back to your family, to your friends, and really emphasize the importance of self-custody to them. And for them, if they're sophisticated, buy the appropriate wallets. But for those who are new, I highly recommend the, self-serving the Ballet cards or the loaded coins. But really get people on board to crypto, to Litecoin, to whatever, and self-custody. Yeah.
Thank you. Tom, do you have any final thoughts?
Just the last thing I'll say is, like, for me, I like to go back to the old Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie, right? With great power comes great responsibility. That's self-custody, right? It's great power, but it's also great responsibility because you are truly the holder of your keys. And if you lose them, if you don't control them, if you don't actually take that responsibility seriously, you don't really deserve to have that power, right? And that's part of it, right? You have to understand that combination of the power and the responsibility of self-custody.
Well said, well said. And I really appreciate you guys, what each one of your companies are doing. So shout out to Edge, Ballet, and Arculus. And I appreciate each and every one of you. And I hope you guys have a great experience for the rest of the Litecoin Summit 2024.
So that was completely over my head. So quickly, let's talk to the people out there that are in my stance on the YouTube streaming. I have a Coinbase, and I don't own my coin, is what you're saying?
Technically, yes.
So meaning
there is a Coinbase wallet that you do have your control of your price.
I do have a Coinbase wallet, so it's two different apps, right? And that's the one that got me super confused, and I posted my 12 words on the wall or whatever, and then I don't have control of those 12 words.
Anything that's going to require you to provide identification is going to be custodial.
Right, okay.
If it doesn't make you provide identification, it's going to be non-custodial.
Right, and if you're out there watching, and this was a big mistake for me, for the past 4 months, I've watched 9 seasons of The Blacklist before coming to do this event. And so all of this just feels like Raymond Reddington is in charge of all of it. But if you haven't seen The Blacklist, that's not a good joke for you. But if you have, that was amazing, so you're welcome. But but anyway, the first 3 seasons anyway, it gets pretty rinse and repeat after that. But I feel like had he had you guys helping him with this privacy, there would have been 15 seasons of The Blacklist, and he wouldn't have been